Hello and good morning, my 1301ers. It is your fearless leader, slash professor, slash cruise director. Welcome back from spring break, our very interesting spring break, and welcome to our new normal, which this is how we will have in class lectures from this point on for the next 5 weeks. Damn it. Please don't. As you can tell, this is a little bit different than our Granbury classroom. Background is a little different. I'm actually over at my mother's practicing social distancing, between us, right? But her beautiful backyard. So this is where our first lecture will come from. I also have my dogs out here. They might run through the shot a few times. They're out here playing as well. But I figured, what the heck, right? Beautiful background to record our first lecture, which this will be put up for you on my YouTube channel, as will all of them from this point on. They're not mandatory to watch, but if you do want to watch for purposes, then absolutely go for it. Alright, excuse me for a moment. Okay, I'm back. So, anywho, welcome to our first lecture. We're good to go. I have, as always, my lovely big cup of coffee. Although a little bit different, not only is background different, I can do this in my pajamas. It's fantasticness. So, but without further ado, let's kind of pick up from where we would have left off, coming back from spring break, which is chapter 9, part 2. Now, we still have to hit John Adams, but unfortunately, I don't have that PowerPoint on my phone. So, the John Adams lecture will have to come later on from my apartment. I will put that up too, it's no biggie. So we will kind of skip over Adams for now and go straight to Thomas Jefferson, who was elected in 1800, as we will see. Hashtag third president of the United States. Hopefully we know that, but you know. So, anywho, here we go. So, we have George Washington, who is where we left off with our last test with, right? Washington was elected, served 2 terms, he steps down. Adams will finally get that position he was after all of that time. Bless his heart, as we will see, he will only serve for 1 term. He'll be a 1-term president. He will inherit all of just the mass turmoil that Washington dealt with in his last term as president. Adams will absolutely try to do everything right. He will try to make the right decisions for this country. It may or may not always go that way. 1 term, no, he's going to try and run. 1800, he's going to try and run for re-election. It's just not going to happen. He's going to go out there, he's going to campaign hard, but in 1800, there's a whole lot of other men wanting to throw their hat in the race, throw their name and, have their name on the ballot. Men like Thomas Jefferson, who was John Adams' vice president, had been Secretary of State under George Washington, of course, obviously until he resigned over that whole French Revolution thing, right? And we have a man by the name of Aaron Burr, who also threw his hat in the race, as well as several others, but those are the big 3. And again, long story short, Adams will go out there, he will campaign hard, tooth and nail, but just won't be able to get the job done. Won't have a shot. It'll really come down to 2 men. It'll come down to the 2 primary candidates in 1800 as Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. The Revolution of 1800 is another name. Great test question. Revolution of 1800 is also what the election of 1800 has been called, because we literally had a war to find a winner, had to have a president. It's going to be a battle of an election, right? Because don't forget, in this day and age, in 1800, the president is still decided by the Electoral College, and whoever has the most votes is president. Whoever has the second most votes is vice president, right? So it all comes down to numbers. So the 2 men go there, they campaign. Long story short, the ballots are cast in 1800. The ballots come in, votes are counted, and it is a dead tie between Thomas Jefferson and Aaron Burr. Well, WTF, right? We've never had that happen before. What do we do? Well, we don't know what to do. It's never happened before. We really don't have things set in place in case it does happen. All we know to do is vote again. So everyone, both candidates come in. They speak, give a speech. They're asked questions, and all the people of the Electoral College or delegates are told to really mull this over, make sure you're picking absolutely who you want to pick, and let's vote again. Ballots go out. Come in. Votes are counted. Dead tie for a second time between the 2 men. Okay, something's not working, right? Something is not working well. So it is decided. It's about 2 weeks are taken. There are debates, there is discussion, there is name calling, there are fights. Both men are brought in a couple of times once again. It's a huge ordeal. It's just an absolute huge ordeal. But after 2 weeks of debates and questions and fights and mulling over and discussion, all right, really make sure you are set in stone on who you want, because we're going to do this again. They're told, right? Ballots go out, ballots come in, votes are counted, and for a third freaking time, people's dead tie. WTF. Now what do we do, right? Again, there's nothing in the Constitution about what to do if this happens, meaning we're going to have to go from there, which is okay. Because unlike the Articles of Confederation y'all read about in Chapter 8, we can tweak the Constitution. The Constitution is able to be extended or added onto or tweaked if need be. So it is decided at this point that if the Electoral College, if there's a dead tie, and by the way, it's still this way to this day, guys, like this per se in this next election we're fixing to have not too long from now. Let's just say it turns out there's a dead tie between the two men, there's no clear winner. The decision between the two men would still fall to the same people it did in 1800. If there's not a clear winner for president, the decision will fall to the House of Representatives. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there a Speaker of the House of Representatives? Pretty sure there is, right? The Speaker of the House of Representatives has a lot of pull, a lot of clout, and it just so happens that in 1800, the Speaker of the House of Representatives was a man by the name of Alexander Hamilton. We are to Hamilton. This is a good story, people. This is an interesting, juicy one. Please ignore the squeaky toy my dogs are playing. Anywho, so Alexander Hamilton is Speaker of the House, right? And he is very well aware of the fact that, well, if the House of Representatives is the head, the Speaker is the neck. And if he plays his cards accordingly, he can get that House's head to sway in either favor of either candidate he does so deem. If he plays his card right, he can convince them who to pick. And he does just that. Hamilton plays his cards right, makes a lot of good points, makes a lot of good arguments, and overall, long story short, between Aaron Burr and his arch nemesis, Thomas Jefferson, will convince the House to pick Thomas Jefferson. Hamilton will literally hand the presidency to his mortal enemy. Question is why? It's like, I'm sorry, he did what now? Question is why? Why would he do that? Answer is interesting. As much as he hates Thomas Jefferson, he hates Aaron Burr a little bit more. In fact, he has been waiting for 9 years to seek revenge on Aaron Burr for something that happened way back in 1791. That's how long he's been waiting. And this gives this gives him the perfect opportunity he has in fact been waiting for. So, now, don't get me wrong, Thomas Jefferson is going to be one of the best first-term presidents in American history. He will thrive. He will end up winning. It'll be a landslide. Almost might as well not had an election in 1804. I mean, he will be almost elected unanimously. He will be great. But he got his first term because literally we couldn't pick a candidate. We couldn't pick a winner between the two candidates. And his mortal enemy hands in the election. Hence, the election of 1800 is also known as the Revolution of 1800 because we literally had a battle, literally had a war to find a winner. But now Jefferson is president. Jefferson is president of the United States, and he is a anti-federalist. Hashtag these people will become known under Thomas Jefferson as the Republicans. They will be tweaked, they will be twisted. My dogs are distracting, I apologize. They're playing hard. Anywho, they become known as Republicans under Jefferson, but right now they're the anti-federalists, and the Federalists are freaking out because obviously Washington and Adams were both Federalists, and it's absolutely believed that here comes this anti-federalist who absolutely opposes everything they stand for, is against who they are, is going to dismantle the bureaucracy of the government that has been created by the two former presidents, and the Federalists are just freaking the freak out. Because Jefferson has been known, over time, to be a little emotional, right? From time to time. We've seen him be sensitive a few times before. But I'll tell you what, guys. The presidency literally becomes a suit of armor for Jefferson. All of the sensitive duck traits that he had up until this point disappear behind this just new persona. This new it's gonna drive me crazy. That this new person he becomes. For I mean that again, he just like he just puts on the suit of armor. Everything that used to offend him will just roll off his back like water off a duck's back, right? He won't let little things offend him anymore. And he will work hard, tooth and nail, to work with those around him. He tells the Federalists from day one, look, I don't care what your personal opinions are. I don't care what you believe. I don't care where you stand. If you are willing to work with me to run this country together, you can stay. Federalist, anti-Federalist, if you are willing to put what our two predecessors did, put this country first, put your personal beliefs, your personal wishes aside, let them come second, you can stay. Let's run this country together better than it's ever been. And they do. Again, he is one of the greatest first-term presidents in American history. I mean, they will figure it out. It's pretty much, again, originally shocks everybody, but he comes off as just this open-minded, open, warm-hearted individual willing to welcome everybody in. Let's all work together to be a big, happy family. But he also wants to come off as common. He wants to come off as simplistic. He wants to come off as normal. Our first two presidents were pretty aristocratic, to be quite honest. But Washington had money. Washington had a huge plantation. Adams kind of came from nothing, but became this huge aristocratic figure. Jefferson wants to prove that a normal nobody, a present day anybody can be president. Uncle Joe from down the road can be president if he plays his cards right, if you make the right moves and right decisions, right? So he wants to come off as simplistic, as simple, as common. So he does all these little things, like instead of being in this huge, grandiose parade, because there was a huge parade that picked Washington and Adams up from their homes and took them to Federal Hall, once again, in New York, where they assumed the presidencies. He's gonna walk. He doesn't need a parade. He's like, I got 2 feet. I can get there on my own. Whatever, right? I can do it there all by myself. I don't need any parade. So he walks. People are like, oh, okay. Instead of reading his own inaugural address, he will have a clerk read it because it's not important for him to be seen. It's important for his message to be heard, right? So he has a clerk read his inaugural address. I mean, all of these little things. He'll hold these dinner parties in the White House, which, by the way, right now it's either known as the presidential home or the presidential palace, president's house. It will become the White House, but not until James Monroe. But it's that same structure. He is the first president to fully serve out of the White House, presidential home right now, but will become the White House in Washington, D.C. Adams served out of it, still under construction in the last few years of his term in 1800. 1801, Jefferson will move into it from day one, serve his entire 8 years out of the presidential house / White House. So he would hold these, long story short, he'll hold these elaborate dinners, these elaborate functions at the White House, which it comes down to these dinner parties in his robe and his slippers. He doesn't need to dress up. You don't need Texas. Come as you are, right? I could go to the freaking White House in my pajamas. It's greatness. Because again, he's just trying to show he's simple. He's common. He's an ordinary Joe. He's a normal person. Common man. And with all these things he does and the right way he's trying to come across and this picture he's trying to portray, he still has his critics, right? Doesn't every president? So, if you look in your PowerPoint, if you look in the Chapter 9 PowerPoint, Chapter 9 continued, by the way, Part 2, you'll see pictures that I posted that may or may not have been taken from Monticello. Apparently, you're not supposed to take pictures in Monticello. But it's one of those things where if you're walking through the parlor and you've got your phone down here and things just click on their own and things happen, I don't know. But you will see, look at those pictures. I mean, look at the floor plan. I have a floor plan of the first story, which his home is altogether. If you count the basement, the cellar where the slaves were, it's 4 stories. And the picture, the floor plan I have laid out is the first floor. It is the floor when you go tour his home. It is your first stop shop. It's the ground floor. It's huge. It's absolutely gigantic. I think like 6 of my apartments could fit in his first, the downstairs of his home. And then again, it's 4 stories, and it's full of all these really cool. I wish we could do this in class so I could point all these out to you. All of these really cool scientific geeky concoctions throughout. There's all these. You'll see these little areas on the floor plan, of little dots, which were actually hidden staircases. If you see in a mystery movie and they pull the book and the secret stairwell, the bookcase goes back and it reveals the secret stairwell. He had all sorts of those throughout his home. He had stairwells hidden behind bookcases and pantries for the slaves to use. The slaves could do their job and bring dinner to be seen, do their jobs and be clean, but be seen as little as possible. They were supposed to use all the secret stairwells to remain out of sight of Jefferson, but also his guests if he had guests over, right? So there's all these really cool things of that nature. And there's all these inventions. There's a picture I took. It's a little bit blurry when I blow it up. But there's a picture of when his parlor, when you walk in, it's a picture of all of these discoveries and these inventions and these technologies that are on the wall that he either constructed / created himself or found throughout his life and displayed in his home. You will see on the floor plan these rooms that are in the shape of an octagon, or half the shape of an octagon. Because again, he was all about his home being relaxing and having a very, cool ambiance, and he didn't like things like shadows. When a shadow comes through the window and casts, or light comes through a window and casts a shadow on the wall, he hated it. He thought it looked grotesque. It took away from the ambiance of the room. So he found, due to the angles, if you build a room in the shape of an octagon, which obviously you'll have a window on one of those walls, but if you build it in the shape of an octagon, due to the angles, when light comes through that window, it won't leave a shadow. Through the angles, it won't leave, it won't hit anything, and there will be no shadows cast left on a wall. It's actually pretty dang cool if you research all these things. You will see, I have a picture, someone took a picture of his guest room. The beds are in bedways. The beds are not like we have them now, where we have them pushed up against the wall and they come out into the floor space of the room. All of his beds are inside the walls of the room on these bedways. His own personal bed was in a bedway. He died, in which he died in. Because he says, what do you use the bed to sleep for? What do you use it for? You use it several hours a night to sleep. But how much floor space does it unnecessarily take up that you could use to do other things in the room? He doesn't have to come out in the room. There's no point for it to. So he put it inside the wall, natural head and footboard. Just saying, all of his beds were in bedways. What else? What else is in my PowerPoint as I'm thinking? Oh, the garden. You will see a picture of his garden. Do you know? True story. There are over 170 different types of vegetable and herb grown across the world. Over 170, and in his personal garden, Thomas Jefferson grew them all. You will see an orchard to the side. Did you know there's over 300 there's 300, no, excuse me, pardon me. There's 330 different type of vegetable and herb. There's 170 different type of fruit grown across the world. Jefferson grew them all 330 types of vegetable and herb, 170 types of fruit. He grew them all. He had, so his home, the long story short, which is just phenomenal if you really think about it, it's like, good freaking Lord. But today it's mesmerizing, and it's really freaking unique and cool. Back then, for a man who came off as so simplistic and so common and so ordinary, people are like, sir, you claim that you're like this ordinary common Joe. I'm sorry, have you seen your house? Right? Makes him look like a hypocrite. Which, that type of thing used to really bug him, right? That would have offended him. But again, as president, he has a suit of armor on. He says, think what you want out here. He had all of these scientific geeky interests. So smart. Guys, President Jefferson was so smart. One of the most intelligent men, hands down, of the 1800s and 1700s, to be quite honest. There's a reason he's a founding father of that magnitude. He could read, write, and speak fluently in 6 languages. His library is phenomenal. If you tour his home, they still have some books in the library to obviously make it be very clear what room it was. But let's just say when Jefferson does die, he dies horrifically in 1826, by the way. He dies horrifically in debt, which was not uncommon. Many founding fathers did back in that day and age. But when he did die, long story short, his home and his possessions were sold to pay what he owed. And things like, obviously, the government bought his home, preserved his home, etc., etc. But his library, throughout his life, Jefferson collected over 10,000 books. Bought. And he's not buying fiction and romance and mystery and science fiction and manga and all these books that we buy today, which, again, there's nothing wrong with. He's buying real books of substance and philosophy and history and language and culture. And when he passes away, his personal library that he constructed throughout his life was bought by our government and became the first ever books of the Library of Congress. It became the library of our Congress, his personal collection. Now, today, the Library of Congress has hundreds of thousands of books, and the public can go. It's a pretty cool place to go see if you've never been there. It's pretty cool to go put your eyes on. But Thomas Jefferson's still, that original 10,000 are still there. They're in these temperature-controlled cases that the public can go see. We know that I think it was like $1, maybe $2 to go see it. But anyway, they're still there, and you can go see the type of books that he collected. But again, so he was this scientific geeky nerd, and as he did his research and he studied and he read, he grew to have this large fascination with Native Americans. First day of class, I told you some of the biggest names we'll study this semester were the first to research Native Americans, get the study of Native Americans going in this country. And he was one of them. He and Washington, were two of them. And Jefferson's personal scientific geeky interests were of the Paleo Indians, the first Indians that ever came over to this country, right? And he fell in love not only with the Paleo Indians, but the woolly mammoth. Come on, it's a big fuzzy elephant. Who doesn't like it, right? But falls in love with the woolly mammoth and spent thousands upon thousands of dollars of his own money, which I'm sure going even more in debt, on woolly mammoth expeditions. In fact, there's all this recorded evidence of Jefferson traveling to New York and helping personally exhume the remains found of a woolly mammoth up in upstate New York, which of everything he could be interested in, again, for those who criticized him, those who didn't like him, his critics, they were like, really, of everything you could be interested in, woolly mammoths, really, woolly mammoths, right? Okay. So he became, mocked as the mammoth of democracy or the woolly mammoth philosopher. Things, poking at him, which back in the day and age would have offended him. But as president, again, suit of armor, he says, hey, I don't care what you guys think. This stuff is cool, right? So let's roll off his back. So, he's criticized due to his interests and his personal likes, and he's criticized due to being a hypocrite in his home and coming up as so simple. Many, many things. These are just examples. But the biggest area out of everything, and there was many more we haven't talked about, obviously space and time, the biggest area he was ridiculed over was on the topic of slavery. And this is kind of the catch-22. There's many different melting pot sides to this, collective parts to make up the story. But, if you really look at it, he was a hypocrite. Because, he wanted to denounce slavery and the Declaration of Independence. It was one of those 95 changes, the Second the Second Continental Congress, that sounds way better, took out a declaration. We say they made 95 changes, that was one of them. Because Jefferson wanted to have in the Declaration the perceived evils of slavery, and they should not be allowed institute in this country. As president and during his time in Congress, he always denounced slavery. He always denounced it as this perceived evil. He always talked about doing away with it. He condemned those that had slaves, right? Well, he himself, as he's bashing, shame on you if you own slaves, he had anywhere from 60 to over 100 slaves himself at a time. But have you met cattle, right? That'd be me saying, guys, those of you who drink coffee, shame on you. You are like the worst people in the world. Do you know that what coffee can do to your body? All that caffeine, if you drink coffee, you're an awful person. Right? Can't do that, which you did. But so not only is he's critiqued and criticized over the slavery issue, his open public persona he holds on it, yet the fact he owns slaves himself. He actually had a 37 romantic year relationship with one of his slaves. I have a video for you to watch over her on your Canvas page under modules. Watch it. You will be tested over it. There will be at least 2 test questions that come from it. And I'll tell you, this is something just to go, if you're interested in this topic at all, to go research it because it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. But Jefferson did, in fact, have a slave. He inherited. Let me backtrack a little bit before I get to this topic. Jefferson had been married. He was married to a wonderful woman named Martha. We have Martha Washington, we have Martha Jefferson. Martha Washington, Jefferson loved her. He cherished, he adored, he idolized his wife. And she gave him several children. It was 3 children. One of them, 2 children, two daughters that lived out full lives. He had a 3rd child, which unfortunately died as an infant. Got his wife pregnant again. And unfortunately, after giving birth to their 4th child, not only did she die from complications, Martha Jefferson died from complications related to childbirth, he also lost their 4th child as well. Lost 2, Two with one shot, everything is awful, horrible, horrible, horrible. So he had two daughters that made it to adulthood, lost his other two children, and lost his wife. And after he lost his wife, I mean, it crippled him. I mean, he was a morbid widower for several years. But while he was married, when they got married, he inherited the slaves from his wife's family side, right? And one of those families that he inherited when he got married were the Hemmings. There was a young daughter by the name of Sarah Hemmings, went by Sally, God-given name though was Sarah, and she grew up basically we're serving under Jefferson. But so Martha dies, his wife dies, and he, but this is way back, 1770s, early 80s. Don't put me on the air. She died. But long story short, he goes. After she dies is when he goes and he serves as a minister over in France. It's when he, Adams, and Franklin were over serving out their time over in France as ministers in the United States. And when Jefferson went to France, he called for a few slaves to come over and serve him in France. And those two slaves that he called for were, in fact, Sally Hemings and her brother James. But this is where it gets interesting. This is where it gets sticky. For slavery didn't exist in France. Slavery was illegal in France. So technically, from the moment Sally and James's feet hit French soil, they were technically free. But they didn't know that. Obviously, he's not going to tell them that, right? But so they come over, they serve him over in France. She's about 16 at this time. And it's during her time serving him in France. She's about 16, not uncommon in that day and age. He's in his 40s, late 30s, early 40s by this point. They start a romantic relationship. Damn it. Out of flowers. They start a romantic relationship. And it's during this time serving him over in France that she becomes pregnant with their first child. Now, this is where it gets even stickier. Because again, she's technically free. She is under no laws abiding her to return home to the United States with her master. He can say, you're going to come home with me, and she can say, no, I'm not. You can't make me. I'm free. She has that right. And he knows it, so he's paranoid. So he basically will make her a deal. Return with him to the United States. Continue to be his slave/girlfriend. And any children they have together, he will grant their freedom when they hit adulthood. 18 to 21-ish. It's depending on when he felt like freeing them. So right now she is free. If she had said no, screw you, I'm out, he couldn't have stopped her. She was already free. She could have lived the rest of her life in France as a free woman. That child and any other children she had would be free from the day they were born. Yet she takes the deal. She will choose to remain his slave over her freedom and return with him to the United States as a slave. On one side, WTF, the same. On the other side, love is a powerful thing. Love is a powerful tool, especially at that young age, right? And here's the deal, guys. He truly did. Yes, it's very weird. It is. There are so many 50 Shades of Grey, that come with this thing, y'all. I mean, it's just insane. But they loved each other. I mean, they had, while she was just a slave, and she, worked for him, etc., etc. This was a romantic, loving, actual, dutiful relationship. Like, they were committed. They were together till the day they died. Well, he died. He dies first. She's at his bedside the day he dies. 37 years they will remain together. They go on to have 4 children together, although some of those, I believe 2 of those, 1 or 2 of those also passed away. I believe only 2 will survive. But which again he does. He does free his children when they become adults, but he never frees her. She's still enslaved to him the day he dies. Which, interesting side note, by the way, does anybody know the day? I've already said the year, but does anybody know the day Thomas Jefferson dies? Anybody? Anybody? July 4th. July 4th, 1826, the 50-year anniversary of the signing of his Declaration of Independence. 50 years to the day the Declaration was passed. Thomas Jefferson will pass away. Ironically enough, his best friend also passes away July 4th, 1826. Good old, post PowerPoint about him later, John Adams. It's kind of interesting because John Adams and Thomas Jefferson formed this bond, this true magnanimous best friendship during their time, of the founding fathers, the days that leading up to the first Continental Congress, the second Continental Congress, going to Paris, serving. I mean, their time in government under Washington, they were best friends. I mean, Thomas Jefferson ends up being John Adams' vice president, but they will have a falling out. They will have a falling out during John Adams' presidency, as we will see, and they won't speak for almost 20 years. But after all these years of being best friends, they have a falling out. I don't want to give it away quite yet. But in the last years of their life, they rekindle their friendship. As they're getting older, they will come back together and basically pick up right where they left off and write thousands of letters. Which, yes, men write letters to each other. People just saying, this is back in the day and age before phone calls and texting and Skype and whatever else, Instagram and Facebook. To talk, Adams lived in Boston, Massachusetts. Jefferson is in Virginia at Monticello. So if they want to speak, you have to write letters. So they exchanged thousands of letters in the last years of their life. And they had this running bet, this kind of joking running bet between them of who was going to die first, right? Especially as they get older, their healths are starting to go. John Adams' wife, Abigail, has passed away. So there's this running, light-hearted bet of who's going to die first. Well, they both died the same day. It's kind of ironic. But who dies first, Jefferson or Adams? Jefferson dies first. A few hours later, John Adams will pass away as well. But again, two different states, thousands of miles apart. They have Adams on his deathbed, as he's dying in this day, has no idea a few hours earlier Thomas Jefferson has passed away. So John Adams' last words ever spoken on this planet, on this earth, Thomas Jefferson survives. What does that mean? Don't blame me. What does that mean? In his last conscious moments of this phenomenal, outstanding, historical life that he led, his last thoughts were of that stupid bet he had running with Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson survives. Adams will pass away. So ironically enough, they both passed away the last 50-year anniversary of the signing of the Declaration. It's kind of interesting. But anywho, so here's the deal. After he passes away, how do we know of this for this 37-year relationship? How do we know all this? How do we know of the children that he had with Sally Hemings? We don't know it from him. We do not know it from Thomas Jefferson because Jefferson never publicly wrote or spoke a word about it at all. He never wrote. The only time his children's and Sally's name was in his handwriting. None of the thousands of letters that went to Adams or anybody else. The only time their names were in his handwriting was when he listed them in his slave registry. He never spoke. Damon. Wait. He never spoke of them. He never wrote of them. He never told anyone of them. He didn't speak a word of them. The only reason we know all of everything that happens in the history of this and the relationship and the children is because of her and the children. And for a little bit, you could say, well, here, he say, she say. Like, how do we know she was telling the truth? Well, I mean, so much of it, it's a done no-brainer. But, like, his children, how do we know they were his children? Well, DNA testing has come a long way. Years ago. Not that long ago, less than 20 years ago. Maybe 20 years ago. But years ago, because they're all buried at Monticello. The remains were brought up. Scientific DNA testing was done on them. And it came back a 98% match that they were his children. He never writes of them, he never speaks of them, he never recognizes them in public as his. The whole thing is, she's always enslaved, she never receives his freedom, he never speaks of the relationship openly, publicly. Everybody knows it. It's like a hidden secret type of thing. A secret everybody knows. The whole relationship is just fascinating. And again, so long story short, it's such a fascinating story. But it is one thing as president he is targeted over. He is ridiculed and criticized over repeatedly, aggressively. But again, he too, as president, suit of armor, he lets it roll off his back. Just about everything that would have offended him, he's like, no, whatever. Which is pretty dang cool, which is good. But not everybody is that way, right? Not everybody is that way. And a lot of the time, people would get pretty insulted pretty easily, just like we do today. We're sensitive creatures, whether we want to admit it or not. Human beings have flaws. But back in the late 1700s, early 1800s, If somebody made you mad, if they offended you, if they hurt you, if they wronged you, the way you would handle it is not to get into a verbal altercation, to get into a fight, to go bash them behind their backs and go talk to your friends about them. Not even to get into a fist fight, deal with it that way. If you were insulted and your character was put on the line, you would handle it by being challenged to a duel. The infamous duel, right? Which just about every person in the 1800s, late 1700s, early 1800s, found themselves probably challenged to a duel. You didn't have to accept. You could say no, but then you would be a coward. You would be, ridiculed, etc., etc. But hey, at least you won't be shot / killed. But duels happened on such a frequent basis that everyone up to people in the presidential cabinet, and Jefferson and his vice president, James Madison, they all owned a set of dueling pistols just in case they were challenged. They would be ready to go. And duels happened on such a frequent basis. I mean, for a long time, if you had a duel and you shot and or killed somebody, no charges would be brought against you. It's one thing to be challenged to a duel. It's another thing to accept. I can tell any of you, hey, go walk out in front of that car driving down the highway going 70 miles an hour. You don't have to do it, right? I'm not pushing you in front of that car. I'm saying, hey, go do that. You can be challenged to a duel. You can say no. You can say, are you an idiot? That car's going to kill me. I'm not going to do that. Screw you. Or you can go, okay, right? If you accepted a duel, you knew the risk. You knew what could happen. And you were abiding and agreeing to it by your own freaking free will, right? So, if you had challenged it and you were shot and killed, whoever challenged you to it for a long time was not held accountable. So they happened all the time. But the most famous duel, hands down, by far, of the 1800s was the infamous duel between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr. Oh yes, people, we are to that story. It's such a good one. So, Hamilton hands Jefferson the presidency due to something he was looking and waiting to get back at him or Aaron Burr for 9 years, right? Well, what was it? Plain. Maybe it won't be too loud. Okay. Like these freaking blowers who've been blowing for 30 minutes. What are they blowing for 30 minutes outside my mother's house? I don't even know. Anyway. Tangent. But, so 1791. We were filling the Senate, right? We were filling Congress. We were filling, which again, by the way, I have a video over James Madison for you also to watch on your Canvas page. Make sure to watch that. But one of the first elections, one of the most important congregational elections that was held as we're filling our House and our Senate for the first time, was the infamous election between Madison and Monroe. But that was not the only one, right? There was also an election as we filled our Congress, between, first spot in the Senate representing New York, between Aaron Burr and Alexander Hamilton's father-in-law. Alexander Hamilton was married to a beautiful, wonderful woman, God bless her heart. Being married to Hamilton was no cakewalk. Interesting story. Named Elizabeth Schuyler. Elizabeth Schuyler's father was Philip Schuyler. He was going up against Aaron Burr for a spot in the Senate representing New York. Well, Aaron Burr wins. Aaron Burr beats Alexander Hamilton's father-in-law. It's this thing, guys, called an election. You have a winner. You have a loser. It's just the way it works, right? But Hamilton cannot accept that his father-in-law's lost. He can't accept that it's just the way the cards fell. Aaron Burr got more votes. Deal with it, right? Hell to the freaking no, y'all. There is no way in the damn world Aaron Burr could have possibly beat Alexander Hamilton's father-in-law. Just ask Hamilton. He is he did, guys, he did. It was an election, you have a winner or loser, whatever. No, but to Hamilton, if you ask Hamilton personally, he is convinced Philip Schuyler stole or was robbed of his seat. It was stolen away by Aaron Burr. Aaron Burr paid someone under the table. Aaron Burr cheated. Aaron Burr did something sneaky, twisted, double-minded. Aaron Burr stole the seat away from his father-in-law, and it wasn't fair. By the way, Hamilton could be childish. Just saying. Just throwing that out there. But, so, which starts this fight and starts this feud because all of a sudden Hamilton is out there just raking Burr over the coals, who, by the way, simply won. I've read it. I've read historians who've looked into it. I've looked at this case. I've been down. He just freaking won. There was no sneaky. I mean, if there was, no historians ever found any evidence of it. He freaking won. But now he's got Hamilton out there bashing and trashing him and raking him and his character and his conduct over the coals. And then Bill starts this feud. It starts this anger and this resentment and this hostility between the two men and starts this hatred and this rivalry that just builds and grows, and the hatred and the anger and the bitterness between the two men just grows and grows and grows and grows for the next 9 years until it's just, Hamilton is just going to physically implode if he doesn't find a way to get back to Aaron Burr somehow. Hence the election of 1800. Because as much as Hamilton, on the flip side, guys, Hamilton absolutely freaking knew Jefferson was the right choice. Internally, he doesn't want to vocalize it because he doesn't like Jefferson, I'm sure. But, which he has to. He can't say, pick Jefferson because I hate Burr more. Hamilton has recognized and openly admitted, like it or not, Jefferson was, by the way, should have been the clear winner overall, hands down. But internally, this just tickles Hamilton to the core more than anything else could, because he's finally got a way to get back Aaron Burr from stealing that seat away from his father-in-law 9 years ago. He finally has a chance to seek revenge. Hence, so while Jefferson was technically the better choice, and Hamilton had to eventually admit that, still a way to get back Aaron Burr. He got his revenge, right? Okay, you got your revenge. Cost the man the presidency. And by the way, in 1804, again, because it's one of those things after the revolution/election of 1800, the Constitution will be tweaked. Per se, it will be noted that if a decision can't be reached, that the House will pick and select. But also, it's also written into the Constitution at this point that from this point on, a president can pick his own vice president. It doesn't matter who comes in second. If you come in second, you're just the runner-up. You're the loser. From this point on, whoever wins the presidency can select his own vice president. So, when Jefferson wins, it's like 162-14, guys. It's a landslide. In 1804, he doesn't have to keep Burr as vice president. He can drop him. He can choose his own vice president, which he does, and he picks up James Madison. So, in one swipe move, Hamilton ended up, ironically enough, costing Burr the presidency and the vice presidency. Go figure, right? So good. This is so good. So, let it go. You got your revenge, right? But nope, Hamilton's not done. He's just not done. Neither is Burr, because Burr's political career is not over. Okay, well, he's obviously not going to be president. He's lost the vice presidency, but he's not ready to retire. He wants to remain in politics, so what else can he do? It's time to elect a new governor of New York. So, Burr is from New York. He decides, well, this is his best shot to stay in politics and power, right? He's going to run for governor of New York. But Hamilton says, oh, hell no, you don't. Wait a dang minute. Burr is a Federalist. Hamilton is a Federalist. But just for this one election and one election alone, Hamilton will switch political parties and now endorse who is now in 1804, Republican. The Anti-Federalist Party has been tweaked and twisted a little bit, renamed and known as the Republican Party now. That blower's going to drive me crazy. He will endorse the Republican candidate, a man by the name of Morgan Lewis, and vocate him up one side and down the other, simply to keep Burr from winning the governorship. He don't like Morgan Lewis. He's not a Republican. He just doesn't want Burr to win. And it works. Morgan Lewis will win. And for Burr, this is the final straw. This is the last blanking straw, right? He is done. He is just done. And he will confront Hamilton. He'll confront Hamilton. The two will have a huge altercation. And long story short, it will result in Burr saying, you know what? Screw you. Enough is enough, Hamilton. I challenge you to a duel. To which, it's Alexander Hamilton. You really think he's going to be like, no, thank you, I'm good? No. Hamilton says, I accept. Now, both from New York. He was challenged in New York, but again, duels are happening on such a frequent basis in this day and age that New York is actually one of the first states that is starting to crack down on duels because so many people are getting injured and killed in these things. They don't hold in New York because they don't want to get in any trouble for shooting and killing each other, right? But so they can't hold in New York. But right across the bay in New Jersey, duels are still a free game, right? So they decide they're going to take several witnesses who can account of this duel. They're going to take a doctor with them just in case someone is injured and needs to be treated. And they're going to row out to New Jersey and have their infamous duel, which I have a picture in my PowerPoint of the two men and the famous coin toss. Because guys, this isn't just a duel. This is a gentleman's duel. Oh yeah, I said it. A gentleman's duel. Think about a gentleman's war. The Revolution. The wars we haven't seen yet. The War of 1812. The Civil War. Mexican-American. Well, we abided by. Anyway, you get the point. Go back and watch any movie you've seen on the Civil War or the Revolution. When a battle begins, does one side, do they both just go, wow, and they attack each other? Or does one side usually fire first? The other side exchanges fire, and you have a few rounds of that before the order to attack is given. You usually have a few rounds of back and forth firing in a gentleman's duel. One side fires first, and then the other side fires. Well, guys, this is a gentleman's duel. Somebody will get to go first. Oh, that's right, I said it. But don't forget, in this day and age, people were not always a good shot. And guns were not built as adequately as they are today. Guns, I mean, you could be pointing at the guy's chest and you fire, and the gun either kicks back horrifically and you miss your shot, or you aim and you fire a square shot, but where you're aiming, the bullet hits 3 feet to the northwest. I mean, guns were not as adequate as they put together as they are today. So just because you get to go first doesn't mean anything. I mean, there's a really famous duel that happened in Texas history under the time that Sam Houston was president, in which there were two men, long story short, who held the duel. And there were 8 rounds between these two men before someone was finally hit. So, just because you get to go first, as funny as it sounds, doesn't really mean a death sentence in this day and age. But someone will get to go first. And there's this famous coin toss, right? Which is what the picture is of. Well, Hamilton wins the coin toss. So the two men will march out their respective paces, right? About 10 steps back. I'm not counting, but I've only got so much room I can go back. Hamilton will raise his gun. Don't forget, Hamilton served under Washington in the American Revolution. Hamilton should be a pretty damn good shot. But Hamilton fires. He aims square at Burr's chest. Misses. Nicks him in the shoulder. Now it's Burr's turn. He levels that gun, punches square at Hamilton's gut, fires, hits him square in the gut. Hamilton falls. Doctor rushes over to see how bad it is, if he can be saved, but it is a fatal shot. Hamilton will start to bleed out. He will go on to mutter some sentences that don't make a whole lot of sense, that aren't really relevant to much of anything, as he's passing away, bless his heart. And Alexander Hamilton will pass away. The great Aaron Barrett. Now, Hamilton is harder to like, right? He's harder to like on a personal level than John Adams. You would not want to go get whiskey with a man. You wouldn't want to go over and watch Netflix at his house. He's a jackass. But don't forget, again, it's kind of like John Adams. You may not don't want to go get a beer with John Adams, but think about from the Boston Massacre on, Adams put this frigging country first every day of his life. And Adams built this country, put building this country ahead of everything but his wife. John Adams' life, his wants, his goals, his wishes, his needs didn't matter. This country was in his wife, greatest love story of all founding fathers, were all he cared about. And Hamilton was the same way. We would not be here without these two men. And many, many others. But again, these are the two that are unlikable. I mean, Hamilton's the same way. Hamilton fought all 8 years. He was at Lexington, guys. He was at Lexington, Massachusetts from day one. Hamilton fought all 8 years of this revolution under Washington. He was always at Washington's side, one of Washington's most trusted second-in-commands. He served on the Constitutional Convention, one of the architects of our Constitution. He was Secretary of Treasury for 8 years under George Washington. He was Speaker of the House of Representatives all the way up until he was killed. I mean, this man devoted his life and was one of the huge puzzle pieces of our country even being here. And he's been shot and killed in a duel by Aaron Burr. And Aaron Burr will be held accountable. Yes, duels are still technically free game in New Jersey, but it's not what he did, it's who he killed. Especially in that day and age where Hamilton was a household name. And so cherished, and so beloved, and so important. And actually, Burr will end up being sentenced. He will be tried on 2 counts of murder. One in the state of New Jersey, where the duel happened, and one in the state of New York, where the duel was established, where he challenged Hamilton to a duel. He's charged with murder in 2 different states because of who he killed. But again, we're in such the initial stages of cracking down on a duel that we don't quite know what to do. Neither state's really quite sure of how to proceed forward with this. So both states will go on to drop their murder charges against Burr. And Burr will be charged with murder in 2 states and both charges dropped. I don't know about you, but if I'm charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and they're both dropped, you're never hearing from me again. I am disappearing. I'm going to freaking, I don't know, the Bahamas. I will never be seen again. I'm living a quiet life, right? Not Burr. Burr's not quite ready to go down the road yet. We will see Burr. He will be back again, doing something just as devilish. But for now, he will be acquitted. He will get away with the murder of Alexander Hamilton. So Hamilton's life comes to a drastically sad, tragic end. About the time that Jefferson's life and presidency, once again, is flourishing. Absolutely freaking flourishing. Again, he has been hands down, well, we've only had 2, but he's hands down been the first best term president up until this point. And today, 2020, he is still considered one of the best first term presidents in American history. Both political parties are working well. They're not always getting along, politics, but they're working well under Jefferson. And Jefferson, guys, was so smart, and he had such a business mind, in a sense. He's unfortunate, love or hate our current president, up until Corona hit, our economy was really damn good. You gotta give Trump that. You just do. And Jefferson's the same way. The economy is flourishing. But also under Jefferson, due to his time in countries like France and just his demeanor, international relationships with not only France, but countries like Britain are decent. Because don't forget, we're still at war. Britain and France are still at war, and both Britain and France have been pretty ticked off and testy of the United States under both Washington and Adams. But the tension has cooled. Things are decent right now. There's a hostile peace, and they're going on right now. So things are better internationally. Our government is working well. The economy is flourished. And not only that, in his first term, Jefferson doubled the size of our country. Doubled the size of the United States with one move called the Louisiana Purchase. That ain't bad for 3.5 years. Just throwing that out there. But that is where this lecture will ... because I've got to make sure I can get this thing up on YouTube. And we will pick up with Jefferson, Louisiana Purchase, finish up Jefferson, move into Madison, when I see you guys next time. Adios, amigos.